It's traditional that we get together Erev Pesach and we try to figure out and hammer out a message, one that could help us approach Pesach. But this year is different. It's different for a few reasons. It's different because of the devastating, almost Holocaust proportion situation that the world is going through, and we as Jews specifically. It's also different because of my own personal hurt. The feeling I have is more to give a message that might incorporate a little bit of a hashkafa, an outlook, and a hadracha, maybe a way of approach in this specific and very trying time. And I want to start with using two yardsticks. Raise the volume. I want to start with using two yardsticks. That means I want to be confined by two understandings and two Gemaras that give us a very strong hadracha, give us a direction. There's one Gemara that tells us that Rav Ashi, who was the greatest luminary 1600 years ago, he was the redactor of the Talmud, he was on par with Ezra, with Moshe, with Rabbi Akiva. Rav Ashi was one of the greatest contributors to the Jewish world in history. So he was talking to two professional eulogizers. One was Bar Kippuk and the other was Bar Ovin, Bar Kippuk and Bar Ovin. And these were people that would be hired to say different funeral dirges and elegies. And he was curious and he asked Bar Kippuk, he says, Ahu yoyma my amrit. On that fateful day, when I'm going to pass away, what are you going to say? And Bar Kippuk had something beautiful, but it was ready. It was immediate. He spat it out right away. And he went on with three very interesting verses. He says, Im ba'arozim nafla shal heves, ma yasu ezeve kir. If the cedars were caught by fire, what are the little wall shrubs going to do? How are they going to escape? If cedars can't escape this fire. And that was an allusion to Rav Ashi. And then he went on to say, Liv yason b'chekahu Allah. If the net was able to catch the great Leviathan, ma yasu degei rekek. What should the small fish, sardines in small ponds do? Aren't they certain to be afraid? Shouldn't they be caught by fright? And then he said, Benachal shoitef of acheka. If the great net was in the raging river, Mayasu me gaving, what should the small water holes do? And he equated Rav Ashi to the Leviathan, to the great cedar, and to the rolling waters. And Rav Ovin, Bar Ovin, who was the other competing eulogizer, was standing there and he didn't like it. He says, no. He says, what? He says, Arozim and Livyasan? I would never use those terms to describe the great rabbi. So Rav Ashi asked him, what would you say? And he says, no, I would say, Bechu la'avelim v'loi la'aveda. Cry for the mourners, don't cry for the one that left. Shehu l'menucha, he went off to great peace. V'anu la'anocha. And we're here with great sorrow. So it says that Rav Ashi was very dissatisfied. He listened to both eulogies and he didn't like either of them. They both didn't fit his satisfaction. And it says that he got upset, and as a result of Rav Ashi's anger, both these individuals were physically wounded. Something happened to them. According to the Gemara, they lost use of their feet. And the Gemara tells us that on the day that Rav Ashi actually died, they didn't merit to arrive and give this great eulogy. This would have been a eulogy of the century, but they didn't merit. They didn't arrive. They weren't there. They were sick. They were laid up. So Rashi has an interpretation. Rabbeinu Hananel has an interpretation. What bothered Rav Ashi? He asked them. He said, why? He asked them, tell me what the eulogy would be. And they They both had eulogies holstered. It looked like they worked on it. They had elegies. They had some sort of syntax. What bothered Rav Ashi? Now, I once saw a pshat. One of my brothers, my brother Rabbi Yankov, once told me this pshat also, but I saw it quoted b'shem Rav Shlomo ben Hayosim, one of the 13th century Rishonim. He said that Rav Ashi was bothered that both these individuals thought that his death was something that could be dealt with. He would have preferred if they would have said, your death is so out of the realm of reasonability, we wouldn't be able to deal with your death. You should just live for a long time. Coming to terms with your death would take us so long we wouldn't even know what to say. But they didn't say that. They said, no, we contemplated your death. We even have what to say about you after you die. Rav Ashi was very disappointed with that. He was disappointed that his death was something that was easily contemplatable by these individuals. So this is one of the yardsticks I want to use. This tragedy and this time that we're living through right now is not contemplatable, it's not fathomable. I don't pose or profess to have something to explain it with. There are some people that do, and you know what, Yashikoyach, but I don't feel I have any interpretation, and I don't feel I have anything other than V'chol b'nei Yisrael yivku es asreif asher soraf. Klal Yisrael has to mourn and cry bitter tears about this great fire that's ravaging us and tearing through us, clipping off some of the boldest and most beautiful trees. It's cutting off the stems of some of the nicest flowers. Doidi yorad legana lilkoit bashashanim. Rabbanim, Dayanim, there is no community that hasn't been hit. I have nothing to say about it. It's imponderable. Such a tragedy is imponderable. I equate it to a virtual Holocaust. Not the Holocaust, yes, it's not 6 million, but it's Shreklach. There's no other way to describe it. So I don't pose to have an understanding that I'm going to share with you. Yet I want to say there's another Gemara that I think is very important, and it's a powerful Gemara. It talks about a pasuk in Yirmiyah that says, "Vayihi kikroi Yehudi shloisha dlasis va'arba." When Yehudi, who Yehudi is, will explain, when he read in front of the king was Yehoyakim, and he was reading a letter of bad tidings about the future destruction of the temple and the exile of Klal Yisrael. When he read Shloisha Dlasis, 3 psukim, Dlasis is a pasuk, Va'arba, and a 4th one, it says Vayikra HaMelech, the king ripped the letter Betar HaSofer, with the blade of the Sofer, and then he threw it into the fire. And the Gemara explains what exactly was the back and forth, what happened. So it says that he came in front of the king Yehoyakim, who was a very big Rasha. He was evil, he was a blasphemer. Chazal tell us in Sanhedrin some of the most ugly, loathsome things about this individual. And it says he came into the Melech Yehoyakim and he said to him, Kosav Yirmiyahu Sefer Kinnis. You should know, Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu the prophet, wrote a book of Lamentations. And it specifically spells out the horror that's going to visit Eretz Yisrael, where you're the king. He says, Mike Simple, what does it say? And they told him, Eicha Yoshva Badad. Behold, how does Eretz Yisrael sit lonely? So he thought for a second and he said, all right, V'ano Malka. But still, I'm the king. I remain the king. Ano Malka, I'm the king. So he said, the second verse says, Bochay tivke balayla v'dimasa alechya. She's going to cry at night. It's going to be tragic. It's not just going to be loneliness, isolation from the nations. It's going to be a ripple effect where the people are going to be very sad. They're going to cry at night. This is going to be a sadness that's going to escort them throughout the... He thought and he said, but it doesn't really address me. Va'ano Malka, but I'm still the king. I'm not worried. I'm not bothered. So they told him, but there's another pasuk. This is the third delis. Golsa Yehuda Merevayni. Yehuda will now have to go into exile. You're going to lose a lot of subjects. People are going to be exiled. Poverty is going to force them to leave. You're not going to have the subjects that you thought you had. He says, Va'ano Malka. He says, but I'm still the king. This hasn't affected me yet deeply. I'm still the king. Why am I worried? And they read a fourth verse to him. They read the fourth verse to him. And it didn't bother him either. The fourth verse was, Darkei Tzion Avelos. The ways of Tzion are going to be desolate. Nobody's going to come. People are going to go. They're not coming back. He says, Va'ano Malka. I'm not troubled. The fifth verse is when they said that Nafla Simon. It finally settled with him. What was the fifth verse? It says like this. What's the matter? It says, the fifth verse was, it says, Hoyu Tzoreh L'Roish. The enemies are now going to be its leaders. Hoyu Tzoreh L'Roish. Oh, he says, Hoyu Tzoreh L'Roish. That means I'm not going to be the king anymore. So he says, Man Omar, who's the one that's authoring? I know Yirmiyahu wrote this, but who's this? Ki Hashem Hoiga. It's Hashem who says this. These are the words of Hashem. So right away he took out the Tara Sefer and he started cutting out every name that was in that Megillah, and he threw it into the fire, Kodar as Korisel, and he threw it into the fire, V'soraf Ba'esh. Now on some level, it's very horrific what this individual did, but we all do this in a modified version. When we hear somebody had a heart attack, often some of us will ask, did he smoke? Was he overweight? What were his comorbidities? Did he have heart history in the family? All of those are basic questions that all come to the same conclusion. Va'ano Malka, I'm okay. I'm okay. Things are not bothering me. They're not affecting me. They're not affecting me. Va'ano Malka. A terrible way to look at things. Why wait for something to hit you square in the solar plexus? This is also something that hits us. Va'ano Malka. We hear about people that are dying from COVID. Oh, they're overweight. There's comorbidities. They're generally people that are older. Yeah, they're all our grandparents, our parents, my father. Va'ano Malka. So I am, in my understanding, I'm guided by these two Gemaras. The first Gemara that I feel just robs the breath. It takes away my ability to even contemplate why and what. Just I want to try to somehow develop an understanding of how to move on. The first Gemara that Rav Ashi was offended by their ability to bring out a hesped so quickly. But yet the second Gemara that doesn't allow us to just say Ano Malka. A Jew, a thinking person, an individual can't just look at a situation and say, well, it has nothing to do with me. Everything has something to do with me. Everything. I like always a story that I've said over many times. I'm just going to repeat it. About a mouse that comes in to the barn and sees that the farmer's wife purchased the mouse trap. And the mouse is very upset. The mouse is very troubled. And the mouse runs to the chicken and says, chicken, chicken, there's a mouse trap. It's gonna hurt us all. And the chicken says, you're a mouse, I'm a chicken. The mouse trap is not going to affect me at all. It'll bother you, so worry about it yourself. And the mouse, getting no resolution, goes to the pig and says, pig, pig, the farmer just put a mouse trap out. It's going to hurt us. And he says, no, not me. Look at me. And he goes to the cow, and the cow has the same response. And then one day, the trap is set, and a very loud clap goes off in the middle of the night, and the farmer's wife goes in to take the mouse out of the trap. But it wasn't a mouse that was caught. It was a snake that was caught. And not realizing that the snake wasn't dead, she approached it and she got bitten. When she got bitten, she got sick. They went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you have to give her chicken soup. That's the only thing that helps for a snake bite. So the chicken died. The chicken lost his life first. That didn't work, and she got sicker, and they went to the doctor, and the doctor says she's very anemic. She needs to eat pork. So the pig lost his life. It didn't work, and the woman died eventually. And a big funeral was held, and guests came from all over the place, and the farmer wanted to feed them. He wanted to give them something impressive, and the cow lost his life for a great feast and a meal that was held in honor of his wife's funeral. And when the mouse said, we all have to worry, the mouse understood. A person can't just say, Shalom alai nafshi. A person has to understand there's no va'ano malka. This tragedy has hit every layer, every family, every situation. Ein bayis asher ein shameis. So I want to say that, One time I read a book on fertility, and it was really the history of fertility. And it started from early fertility experiments, which were the introduction of goat gland and different things that were not considered at all scientific, to the eventual understanding of embryology and the understanding of how to do intracytoplasmic fertilization and the amazing miracles that are done today to help people that are infertile. And somewhere in the middle of this article, I read a line from a doctor who said, I want you to know, today we could make 2 pieces of wood have a baby. That's how advanced we are. And in my mind, I thought, Shemu Shamayim, there is no God. What he did was he stripped the whole God idea out of the process. We could do what we need to do over here, together with chromosomal manipulation or gene manipulation or now mitochondrial manipulation, everything that could be done to the point where scientists in a today world could easily say, listen, God was a wonderful thing when we had no knowledge. God was great when nothing really worked and we couldn't understand it. But now we see everything. Light microscopes could show us exactly what's happening. There is no real need for God, and someone actually said that. I could make 2 pieces of wood have a baby if I want to. It's not up to God anymore. And books that I've read about the evolution of brain science, okay, not as developed as fertility. Books I've read on the evolution of heart medicine. And the heart is relatively young. It's true that Da Vinci understood the diseases of the heart. He wrote about it. He drew it. He dissected many hearts. Andreas Vesalius drew all the chambers of the heart. And there were many people. Harvey Bernard understood blood circulation. And yeah, every 10, 20 years, a new development, but there was nothing that a person could do. Once the chest pains came, it was understood that a person was on his way to death. There was nothing that could be done, whether it was calcification of the arteries, whether it was stenosis or different other situations. Once the chest pains came, most doctors understood that the time of the patient was limited. Okay, enter an individual in the late 1890s, early 1890s actually. His name is Daniel Hale Williams, who did the first heart surgery. A patient who was knifed, and he cut open his sternum, he did a surgery, and he started the first understanding of cardiology. This was the first time where doctors understood. He eventually started a hospital in Chicago. He called it Providence Hospital. It was a great hospital. It was run by Black people, and it was a very, I would say, a very competent and capable hospital. It was closed in the 60s. And he pretty much in 1891 started the whole idea of opening a heart and fixing and mending a broken heart or a damaged heart. I read about somebody whose name was Werner Fossman. In 1929, he was sitting in a bar and he said, I am going to change heart history. I'm going to put a tube in my arm and get it all the way up into my heart, and I'm going to take a camera and I'm going to look at what's doing in my heart, and the heart will never be the same. And everybody thought he was crazy and he was full of bluster, but ultimately he did it. He ends up winning a Nobel Prize, and that's cardiography. Cardiology starts then in a way that somebody later started a balloon. Slowly, things developed to the point where B'Yameinu, you could hear a doctor say, if it's the heart, you don't have to worry. You're not dying from a heart problem. Between stents, between ballooning, between TAVRs, which is a way to make a valve replacement without even opening the heart, between different heart surgeries, you're not dying from the heart. Doctors really feel they could say that. You're not dying from this. Where's the Rabbi Shalom? We're a science world. We're a society that's very much scientific. There is no God. God's a ridiculous concept that pretty much existed when there was no other hope, when there was no Eitzah. So God was very important. And it reminds me very much of a Gemara in Chulin Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis. The Gemara says that Rabbi Shua ben Hanania used to have strong dialogues with one of the Caesars. It's not clear who the Caesar was, and it's not clear if he was Roman or he wasn't Roman. Rabbi Shua ben Hanania used to dialogue with him, psukim, issues of religion. And it says, he told him once, he says, it says in the Pasuk, Harishag Mila Yira, a lion roars, and that's supposed to be equating Hashem to a lion. Who doesn't fear? When the lion gives out its roar, who doesn't fear? Harishag Mila Yira. He says, Elekechem ka'aryeh matu. Your God is equated to a lion. He says, Aryeh parsha katalei. I have a very good hunter who could kill a lion. A couple of well-placed arrows, he could destroy the lion. Why is it such a novel idea that the Rabbi Shalom is compared to a lion? What's so important and impressive about a lion? So he told him, no, not like stamina, like Aryeh stamina, like Aryeh de Be'iloi. The Rabbi Shalom is compared to the Aryeh de Be'iloi. Now, Rashi doesn't learn this to mean the heavenly lion. Rashi learns it to mean a unique lion from a place Eloi. Others do learn it to mean Aryeh de Be'iloi, a heavenly lion. What is the heavenly lion? So Rabbi Shua ben Hanania says it's a different lion. You don't understand what we're saying over here. This is a whole different lion. The king says, I'd love to see this lion. I'd love to see. He says, I'd like to see him. So it says, you can't see him. It'll destroy you. Even if he comes in close proximity to you, you'll get destroyed. You can't see him. So he says, Ivra Chazi boy, I want to see him. I really want to see him. So Rabbi Shua ben Hanania says, okay, you want to see him, you will. He asked for mercy. He wanted the God, the Lord of hosts, to show himself to this king, to show his power, to show his might, to not allow this king to just make fun of God, to not go unpunished. So it says, the Gemara tells us, Iakir miduchte. The lion moved from his perch, from his lair. Ki havim marchek arba meis amma. When the lion was 400 amma away, when the lion was a distance of 400 ammas away, so the lion gave a roar. Niham chad kola. He gave out a very loud roar. And that roar caused apilu kol ma'abarta beshura deroimi nofal. Now, Rashi learns that all the pregnant women lost their babies. Others learn apilu kol ma'abarta, all the bridges fell down. Beshura deroimi nofal, and the gates and the walls of Rome caved in. That's how powerful the lion was. That's how strong his roar was. And when he was 300 miles away, Niham Chad Kola, he let out another, and the king fell off his throne, and their teeth fell out. Fear caused them to lose their teeth, and he begged Rabbi Shua, says, send the lion back home. Send the lion back home. Now, it looks like almost a fairy tale, but I understood this Gemara a different way. I once said a pshat, and I think the pshat has some truth and merit to it, that what Rabbi Shua ben Hanania tried to explain to the king was God has many agents. He has many different vehicles. By calling himself a lion, he doesn't necessarily mean a lion. But if you want to see it, it's going to devastate you. And the king says, I can't imagine what you could possibly mean. So Rabbi Shua ben Hanania says, okay, I'm going to show you. It's going to cost you, but I'm going to show you. And when he asked for the lion to come, more than likely what came was another nation, maybe the Carthaginians, maybe some other very forceful and mighty nation whose killer, whose standard was a lion. And they were called the lion, just like the Persians were a bear, just like the Polish were a double eagle. The lion meant the symbol of this foreign government. And when this foreign government was 400 miles away, and they were intending on marching on Rome, so all the bridges of Rome were taken down and all the gates were obfuscated, so no one should know how to get in. There should be no access. And now the lion started making sense. And when he was 300 miles away, the king fell off his throne, meaning he went into hiding. And people lost their teeth from fear because there were no dentists practicing. There was nothing doing.
very similar to what we have today. Rabbi Shua ben Hanania says, you want to see what a lion is? Why are you being so immature and you think it's a lion? It's not a lion. I'll show you what a lion is. A lion is a nation whose standard that they march into war with is a lion. Now see. And the king begged, he says, I get it. And you know, maybe for many years, science tempted God and said, God, you're not necessary. We could do what we need to do. In fact, there are videos online that the people who are going to live 500 years are alive today already. I think Robert Sapolsky has a video or a book. The people who are going to live 500 years are alive already today. If Hashem wanted, if Hashem wants, it'll be. If he doesn't, it won't. So science is sort of playing with the Rabbi Shalom. Our way of living is playing with the Rabbi Shalom. Everything is certain. Everything is very, very mapped out. We know exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. Everything is seen. Everything is recorded. You know what? It's not that simple. Here comes a little virus, smaller than the naked eye could ever see, and wreaks havoc in a full globe, an advanced globe, the most advanced globe in the history of man. This is the Aryeh Debeilah. This is the heavenly lion. And saying this, the only point I want to make is, I don't know why, I don't know what. All I think is that could be what we're supposed to be doing is say, Yiskadol v'yiskada Shmei Rabba. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be noticing God, recognizing God, understanding that the Rebbeinu Shalom controls our life. Trying to somehow be ma'amis that concept. We're certainly being forced to say a lot of Yiskadol v'yiskada Shmei Rabba. Everybody's losing somebody. We can't even do it yet because we have no ability for minyanim. But it could be that all that's being nitva from us, what's being asked from us, is just Yiskadol v'yiskada Shmei Rabba. Let's recognize God. Let's recognize his might. Let's understand that he's the one. I want to point out another thing. I read an article. My friend Eugene sent me an article from his sister Ina, a small article about a guy from Medtronics. His name is Yitzroni, I think, Yaron Yitzroni. He's got a number of patents on ventilators. Probably could make him a lot of money. But recognizing what's happening and understanding his unique position, he said, take my patents. I don't want them. I want people to be saved. Now you got to understand that this is an individual who probably could have made a fortune of money and says, no, I'm not, that's not my thing. This is a guy who's a koina oilama b'shah achas. He's meriting his world in 1 hour, in 1 minute. It's an amazing opportunity. It's lined up in front of him and he grabbed it. These are the health professionals that are in the front lines, some in my community, some related to me, who I'm jealous of. They're in the front lines and they're taking the opportunities. They're going in, exposing themselves to illness, helping people, holding people's hands when there's nothing they can do. These are the people who are koina olam b'shah achas. I want to talk a little bit about this concept. There are people that I know in my community looking for cures, and they're well into it, and they're pouring their whole life into it for the intention of helping people. We know many Gemaras when Rabbi, the writer and redactor of the Mishnah, saw people that seized these types of opportunities and were able to be immortal because of that, he cried. Number of places in Shas. Rabbi cries and says, There are people who merit their whole world in 1 hour. And the reason he cried was because he understood opportunity and he recognized what these people were doing. And he valued that they were walking through the portal of eternity by grabbing and seizing these opportunities. I want to talk about Rabbi Akiva. All Gemaras that we know, and I'm not going to belabor it terribly, but I want a certain nekuda over here. Rabbi Akiva was someone that seized opportunities like the best of them in the Shas. We see in the Gemara in Menachos Daf Chavtes, we have an indication of Hashem's chashivas to Rabbi Akiva. Hashem was machshav Rabbi Akiva above and beyond everybody else. When B'shah she'ola Moshe l'amarim v'roas HaKadosh Baruch Hu koishuk sharim on the Sefer Torah, you saw the Rabbi Shalom was adding new little Hagim on the Sefer Torah. He says, Mima akiv al yadecha. Why are you doing this? Why is it necessary? The words are beautiful. Why are you adding these little marks of beauty? He says, Adam echad yesh asid lamed b'seif kamadoros. There's a man, Adam, a man who's going to eventually get up after many generations. V'akiva ben Yosef shmoi. V'asid lidrosh al kol tag v'tag. Or kol koitz v'koitz. Tilei tilin halachas. He's going to open this Sefer Torah up and he's going to expound on it. And he's going to broaden it to the point where it's not going to look anything like what you're seeing it right now. And I want to give him a very nice parchment to work on. I'm giving him something amazing to work on. The Rabbi Shalom wrote Chalakim of the Torah for Rabbi Akiva. It's like an amazing thing to know that Rabbi Akiva was the one that when Hashem was thinking about what to put in the Torah, Rabbi Akiva was the one that Hashem had in mind. You see how much space Rabbi Akiva occupies. So let's talk about what made Rabbi Akiva, if we dare. Rabbi Akiva is a late bloomer. We don't know anything about him. Maybe we do from the Gemara on Shabbos, Daf Kuf Chav Zayin, but I'm not discussing that right now. But we don't know anything about him till he's 40. And when he's 40, we learn that he's an ignoramus. Obviously, Rav Nosson says he was so ignorant, he didn't understand that all had to learn. But he was persistent, and he was a gentleman. And we learned that he falls in love with Rachel, the daughter of Kalba Savua. And it's the most ununderstandable union. How would the daughter of the Gadol Hador, the most important person, ever fall in with Rabbi Akiva? But it's Rabbi Akiva's persistence. It's owed to Rabbi Akiva's persistence. He told her, I could be anything you want me to be. You want me to learn, I could learn. You want me to do whatever you want, I can do. This is the person who, when the door is open, he always runs into it. He says, I'm in. He says, sign me up. And that's how he was able to merit getting Rachel. And they're disowned, and they're in extreme poverty. And she throws something out of her mouth. Maybe it was even a haphazard statement. Maybe it wasn't serious. She says, I wish you would go and learn and become a major Talmud Chacham. And he says, really? You want that? And off he goes for 12 years, and he leaves her alone. And he studies by the children, graduates to older children, and eventually becomes a great scholar. He comes home and he overhears his wife before even going in after 12 years. I wish he would go back more if he would listen to me. And he goes back. Rabbi Akiva seizes opportunities. He always enters open doors. Rabbi Akiva, there's a Gemara, a Brisa in Kala Rabasi. His whole life was opportunities. Everything he did was about opportunities. In Kala Rabasi, it says that Rabbi Akiva once felt that his Rebbe, it's not clear whether Rav Tarfon was his Rebbe or not, but he once felt Rav Tarfon wasn't giving enough charity. Rav Tarfon was very wealthy. Rabbi Akiva was a Gabbai tzedakah, and Reb Tarfon wasn't giving enough charity. So Rabbi Akiva went to him and says, Rebbe, Ritzoncha she'ekna ir or shtei ayoros, would you like me to buy for you, invest in a city or 2 cities? He says, give me 400 zuz and I'll buy the necessary real estate for you. Reb Tarfon said, certainly. So he gave him the money. Liyamim, a few days later, Pogash by Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon saw him. He says, Ir shekanisa b'shvili. The city that you bought for me, where is it? So Reb Tarfon says, come, I'll show you. And he took him, he walked with him into the Beis Medrash, and they took out a Tehillim, a scroll of Tehillim, and they sat down and they started reading. They read from the first parak all the way to parak Kuf Yud Beis. That's a long time and a lot of reading, until they together got to the pasuk. Pizar nasan le'evyonim tzidkosei emedes la'ad. They got to the pasuk where it says, when a person spreads his wealth out to the poor, his righteousness stands by him forever. And at that point, Rav Tarfon understood the message, and he got up and he hugged Rabbi Akiva and he kissed him on his head. He says, my student and my teacher. My student, but my teacher, because you taught me the way of life, you taught me what I'm supposed to do. Rabbi Akiva not only saw opportunities for himself, he saw for others. He believed in others. He demanded from others. Rabbi Akiva supported Bar Kochva was an opportunity. I'm not going to discuss that now, but it was an opportunity. And one of the most tragic things is the dialogue Rabbi Akiva has with his great Rebbe, Rabbi Lezer ben Horkins, Rabbi Lezer Hagadol. We all know the story that Rabbi Lezer was put in excommunication. We don't know exactly when it happened, but he had a very vocal argument with the Chachamim in the laws of Tumah and Tara, in the Gemara and Bava Metzia, and the Chachamim felt that he wasn't yielding to the majority rule sentiment. And the Chachamim felt that he wasn't going to be somebody that could fit into the future of halacha. Halacha has to work with Yochid v'Rabim, Malach v'Rabim. It has to work with majority rule. And they understood that they had to do a radical surgery and remove Rebbe Lezer from the body of halacha in the future. And it was very traumatic, and it was a very trying thing. And Rabbi Akiva was his principal student. And they put him in excommunication, and he remained that way for many years. And when they finally heard that he was dying, when they finally heard that Rebbe Lezer was dying, so it says that they all went to visit him. They understood that he was on his deathbed, and they went to visit him. So it says, Keshechala Rebbe Lezer nichnesu Rabbi Akiva v'chaveirav levakro. Rabbi Akiva and his friends went in to visit him. Hu yoshev bakina, if he was sitting in the boudoir, he was sitting in the bed. Vehem yoshvim betraklin shaloi. And they were sitting in his bedroom. It was Friday afternoon. And it says that he turned to them and he says, Lama Bosem, why'd you come? Amru lei, they said to him, Lilmai Torah banu. We came to learn Torah. Lilmai Torah banu. We came to learn Torah. Omar lohem, Ba'ad achshav lama lei bosem. Why didn't you come till now? Amru loi hoya lanu pnai. We didn't have time. The real answer was, you were removed from the body of halacha. You were too forceful. You didn't understand that it has to be with a majority. But they didn't answer the truth. So it says, Omar lahem, in his anguish, he said to them, I wonder if any of you are going to die natural deaths. So Rabbi Akiva, who was his student, and maybe was banking on some mercy, but he said, Rebbe, he said, Shalimahu, what about me? Am I also going to suffer such a fate? I'm good to you. We love each other. He says, Shalcha kosher mikulam. He says, yours is going to be much more harsh. You're going to die a more brutal death than any of them. And we know the Gemara in Menachos tells us the brutality of Rabbi Akiva's death. Now, why did Rabbi Akiva deserve this? And why was Rabbi Lezer with such targeted anger against Rabbi Akiva? And could be the answer is because Rabbi Akiva, you're an opportunist. Rabbi Akiva, you understand opportunity. Your whole life is built on opportunity. You married through opportunity. You became a Talmud Chacham through opportunity. You helped other people and built charity through opportunity. You recognize opportunity the second you see it. Why didn't you understand the opportunity you could have had in me? I am the Messiah. I am the link to the previous generation. Information that'll never be known. The pain of a teacher that couldn't teach. The suffering and anguish of a Rebbe that couldn't be a Rebbe. That's what you left me with. And you more than anyone know opportunity. And he picks up his arms and he says, he says, not al shtei zroyosav. He picks up both his arms. He puts them on his heart. Omar, and he says, oy lachem shnei zroyosav. Woe to you, my two arms. They're like two scrolls, two Sifrei Torah. Harbe Torah lamadati. I learned so much Torah. Harbe Torah limadati. I also taught a lot of Torah. Harbe Torah lamadati. You know how much I learned? But still, I only got like a dog licking out of the ocean. That's all I got out of the sea of Torah. And you know how much I gave? I only gave like a dropper from a large beaker. I never was fulfilled. I never was. And the only one that ever asked me anything that was deep was Rabbi Akiva. And he says, and you're asking me now whether you're going to survive? Of course you're not going to survive. Of course you're going to die. You're guiltier than everybody. You have the reality and you know the reality and you live by that reality. Rabbi said, we are living in a horrible time, but it is a glorious time also. There's so much available to us. There's so much shah achas that each individual could be koina ilama b'shah achas. Each and every single individual has so much opportunity. Whether it's in their house, with their children, with their wife, people have to understand living in quarantine with your wife is not what we ever expected. It's very difficult. Yes, I hear from a lot of people how traumatic it is, how turbulent it is, but we're given opportunities over here. Yesh koina olama b'shah achas. We could acquire a whole world in 1 hour. This quarantine could be what defines us. Those in the healthcare industry and those in the areas where they could help, this could define us. Those that are in any type of chesed, whether it's helping people make ends meet, getting people jobs, this could define us. People don't understand. After the Holocaust, there was so much opportunity for people to rise to the top and become the Balei Chesed, the Kahal people, the leaders, the great. This is an equalizer. We now have more opportunity than ever. Wars give doctors tremendous amount of opportunity to do research. It gives Goyim Lei Chesed tremendous amounts of opportunity to do Chesed. Yeah, it's easy to get lost and to look at this as something so devastating and Hashem hates us and everything is terrible and we're really, really on the ropes. But it's also an opportunity. And it's also something that we should look at and understand that if we would be machazik, no lashon hara, we'd be machazik in being nice to our children, nice to our spouses, nice to people around us, focus on getting people jobs, focus on getting people shidduchim. You know how hard shidduchim is now? There's no dating. Everything is quarantine. If we would focus now and give our attention to helping people get shidduchim, these are opportunities of a lifetime. It could turn every mundane individual into something unique, into something sort of like a superstar. Why look at it as devastation when we could look at it as opportunity? Yeah, I recall one time hearing about a pastor who gave a sermon and he was praying for the war to end. And a lady in one of the pews said, "But I don't pray for the war to end," she said, "because every day the war's in progress. My husband, who's a munitions maker, is making $1 million. And he looked at her and he said to her publicly, There is no hotter place in hell than the place that they're stoking for you. And I say the opposite over here. We want it to end. There's no question we want it to end. But Kolzman, people are suffering. Let's make the most of it. Let's comfort people. Let's help people. Let's aid people. Let's do the best we can. And I think this will, Be'ezah Hashem, cause us that we may tzeischam in Mitzrayim, Marenu Neflois, and we should be zeicher to see the Gula Asida, the Meir of Yameinu.